Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel where I love to bring you my best tips and tools to inspire you to create beautiful home decor on a budget. I had so much fun creating these 5 Christmas home decor DIYs. I used items that are pretty easy to find either at Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby, or your local craft store. So with all that being said, let's get crafting. For today's first DIY, we're going to make over this Dollar Tree beaded hanger sign. We're also going to use these skinny wood letters from Hobby Lobby and a napkin and some Mod Podge. So these signs are currently at Dollar Tree. There's this one that has the squares, and there's also one that has circles. It's really nice, has beads in between, has a tassel at the end. I had already peeled off some of the paper. I was just needing to work a little bit more to sand off kind of the underneath sheet. Once I got off as much as I could, I'm going to give each of the 3 squares one coat of my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. This is just to give us a uniform color and coverage to go under our napkin pieces. While that paint is drying, we're going to take our black chalk paint and just give one coat to each of our 3 wood letters here from Hobby Lobby to spell the word joy. Next, once our paint on our squares was dry, I'm just taking my sander and just smoothing it out a little bit before we Mod Podge our napkin pieces on. Just want a nice smooth surface for our Mod Podge. Next, taking my Mod Podge, I'm going to put a little bit on each of the squares, and we're going to brush that, spread it out, and then we're going to let this dry completely. Once that's dry, I'm going to take this napkin that is in my stash. It probably was gifted to me from someone. Really pretty. I love the gold in the middle and the poinsettia flowers on each corner. I'm going to use 3 of the 4 pieces of this napkin for our 3 squares. I'm going to use some Scotch tape and be able to get all the way down to that top layer of napkin. That's all we're going to want to use to Mod Podge onto our squares. So we'll use the tape. We'll get all 3 of our squares, just the top layer of the napkin, ready to go. Now that the Mod Podge is dry, we can place our napkin piece, put some parchment paper down, and then we're going to iron that top layer of napkin onto the Mod Podge. The heat from the iron is going to reactivate that dried Mod Podge, and it's going to grab onto the napkin. You want to make sure you have some parchment paper down just in case some of your Mod Podge is still wet, but here you can see I'm just gently going around the edges to make sure that it's stuck down all the way. I'm going to do the same thing with my second and third squares. You can see I'm kind of trying to position the napkin graphic a little bit differently so that all 3 pieces are a little bit different. Once all 3 of our squares have the napkin ironed on and it is dry, we can take our little sander now, and in a downward motion, we're going to separate the excess of the napkin apart from the square that we want the napkin to stay on. This is a really nice, easy way to clean up the edge and get a nice clean edge with our Mod Podging. So we're going to do this to all 3 of Now, because this is a napkin, I do want to Mod Podge over the top, so I'm laying down just a little bit of Mod Podge, but I don't want to use a brush because I don't want to risk ripping the napkin. So you can see I'm using a foam dome brush here, and I'm just kind of pouncing and pressing the Mod Podge into the napkin to make sure we have it completely down. And I'm going to do this to all 3 of the napkins. Then our last step, once everything is dry, is I'm just going to use my hot glue, and I'm going to glue down my wood letters that we painted black. This is so classic and pretty, and to think that it just took a napkin, a $1.25 hanging beaded sign from Dollar Tree, and these 3 wood letters. I think I'm going to definitely go back to Dollar Tree and get some more of these beaded hanging signs, both the squares and the circles. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. For DIY number 2, we're going to make this Hello Winter ice skate sign using this white plate from Hobby Lobby, these wooden ice skates from Dollar Tree, and this stencil from Magnolia. So the first thing I'm going to do is with Night Sky, it's kind of a darkish grayish blue, I'm going to paint this inside circle of our plate. I love this plate. I want to say it was about $1.99 at Hobby Lobby, and it just always makes me think of snowflakes. So I wanted to do something with it for Christmas. I did need 2 coats of my chalk paint to completely cover the shiny plastic inside part of our plate. Then taking this tool, I'm just trying to gently remove the wooden snowflakes from each of my ice skates. I want to be able to paint my ice skate and then paint my snowflake something different. So as gently as you can, get those off. We're going to scrape away any excess there, sand it down just a little bit so that we can paint our ice skates. Now I know ice skates are traditionally white, but I really wanted a pop of color here, so I decided to paint mine with crimson red. I'm going to paint the main shoe part of each of these ice skates with crimson red, and then I'm going to use mineral gray for the blades and black for like the heel and the sole of each skate. Now while my ice skates are drying, I'm going to paint some Mod Podge onto these snowflakes, and then I'm going to add a bunch of this white iridescent glitter from Walmart. Now coming back to my ice skates, I decided I wanted to add a little bit of fur at the top. So I'm taking this chunky white yarn and I'm just going to glue a strip of it around, what would that be, like the cuff of each of our ice skate boots, and then just wrap it around rather than try to cut it. If you cut this yarn, it kind of frays a little bit and sheds, so wrapping it around is going to be the cleanest. So we'll do this to both of our ice skates. And next we'll go ahead and hot glue both of our glittery snowflakes back onto our ice skates. Next, I'm going to use this Hello Winter Ice Skates stencil from Magnolia. This is new this season. I'm just going to use the words you can see up there at the top of the center of my plate with white chalk paste. We're going to stencil just these words onto our plate. Now, I will say after my 2 coats of Night Sky chalk paint, I did spray my plate so that the adhesive from my stencil would not lift any of that paint off of my plastic plate. So keep that in mind. You do want to make sure you seal in that chalk paint before you stencil. To finish off our plate sign, I just glued our 2 ice skates onto the plate, and then I'm going to fill in some of this space here with these really pretty silvery florals. I believe these are from Dollar Tree, and I think this really added that final touch to the project. If you're stopping by my channel for the first time today, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me. I really hope you like what you see and you'll consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support of my channel. If you would do me a huge favor, as you can see, I'm very close to 100,000 subscribers. Maybe you just would check for me to make sure that you're subscribed. I would really appreciate it. For DIY number 3, we're going to make this wall tile. I'm calling it a peekaboo ornament. I've been seeing these all over and I've really wanted to give one a try. I have 2 of these wooden ornament signs from Dollar Tree, a wall tile, and a bird napkin. I like taking these Dollar Tree signs and doubling them up by wood gluing them together and then clamping them. It just gives us a nice thicker sign. I did notice that these ornament signs were probably from 2 different years because they weren't exactly the same shape, but I was able to make it work. Putting some wood glue down, I'm going to squish these 2 ornament signs together and then clamp them to dry. While those are drying, we'll take our wall tile and that same night sky darkish blue, and I'm going to paint my wall tile. You can see I'm not necessarily getting in the middle because we're going to be cutting that piece away, but pretty much everywhere else on the wall tile, we're going to give 1 or 2 good coats depending on coverage of this dark blue color. Once all that paint is dry, I'm going to take my Fiskars fingertip knife, putting this wall tile down on a cutting mat. I'm just going to trace around with my knife that inside, it's kind of like a star shape with my knife until we get it completely removed and we can make that little peekaboo hole there in the middle. Once I have that hole cut out of the center of my wall tile, I'm going to flip it over and put my ornament sign directly in the center. We're going to trace around it so we can then cut the ornament shape out of the wall tile using our scissors. Next, placing the wall tile on top of the ornament, I'm now going to trace that inside hole with a pencil. This is going to help me line up my napkin that we're going to Mod Podge. So putting a little bit of Mod Podge there on the ornament, I'm going to brush that on, making sure I get it all the way filled in on that pencil space, and then we're going to let that dry completely. While that's drying, I'm going to come back to the wall tile and I'm going to dry brush some gold sparkly paint on here. This is going to help bring out the detailing in the raised part. I'm also going to use the gold to outline that little hole that we made in the center. And now that the Mod Podge is dry, I can see the pencil line through my napkin, just my top layer of my bird napkin here, and I'm going to place it and then put parchment paper over and iron it just like we did on our first project today. And once that's secured down, I can go ahead and remove any excess of the napkin that is not attached to Mod Podge. This is all going to be covered up by the wall tile ornament, so we're just removing any excess that we can. Then placing our wall tile ornament on top, we're going to add hot glue, half of it at a time, using that pencil outline to line up our wall tile. Be very careful with the hot glue as the plastic of the wall tile does get pretty hot from the hot glue. I decided to add a little bow and some greenery to the top of our ornament. You can see I was planning on doing 2 layers, but I didn't like that green on top. I didn't think it necessary, so I'm just going to do this red and green plaid. Just make a really simple loop bow by making a loop and then tying it in the center with some jute twine. Once we get that tied, we can trim the excess of the string and glue it at the top of our ornament. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of greenery and some berries to finish this off. And I absolutely love how this turned out. I definitely plan on making more of these in the future. For a complete list of all the tools and supplies I've used in today's projects, please open up the description box below the title of this video. There you'll find the list for each project. You'll also find my website for my Magnolia Design Co. website and my Amazon storefront. For DIY number 4, we're going to make this hanging mittens sign using a wood box sign, 8 of these wooden mitten stickers from Dollar Tree, and this I Love Christmas paper pack. So this is a box sign from Michael's. I had used it in a previous project. So I'm just going to take my black chalk paint and I'm going to cover over the red paint on the sides, on the top edge, and on the inside of the frame. We don't need to paint over the entire inside of the sign because we're going to be covering that with some scrapbook paper. Next, I'm going to measure the inside of my sign so I can cut my scrapbook paper. I believe it measured about 11¼ inches wide by 7¼ inches tall. I'm going to use this wood shiplap looking scrapbook paper that has white snowflakes in the background. I thought this was really pretty and would be a nice touch for this sign. So once I know that it fits inside, I'm just going to put down some Mod Podge, spread that all around. I am going to go up the sides of the inside of the frame as well as the top or front edge of the frame to give everything a nice uniform look. Then once we have that Mod Podge in, I'm going to place the scrapbook paper and press it down so that it's nice and flat, burnishing it down to make sure there's no air bubbles. I thought this project was a really cute way to use these wooden stickers from Dollar Tree that are these mittens. So I'm going to use 8 of the mittens. I am going to take the little foam adhesive dot off of the back and just kind of sand that down a little bit. We're going to pair these up into 4 pairs of mittens. So once we get that adhesive off, I'm going to choose 4 pieces of the scrapbook paper that came in this same kit, and I'm going to trace a left mitten and a right mitten from each of the scrapbook papers. And once those are all traced, we will cut all 8 of our mittens out. Next, using Mod Podge, we'll brush that on and then we'll stick each of our cutout scrapbook paper mittens onto the wood mitten stickers. Once those are all dry, we'll take our little sander again and in a downward motion, we'll clean up any excess scrapbook paper. I decided to use a couple of the border stickers that were also in this paper pack, one at the top and one at the bottom, just to give a little more decoration to the back of our sign. Oops, you see I had a little bit of wet paint there still, so I just grabbed a baby wipe there to clean that up. So we have our stickers now at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to take some of this jute twine wrapped wire. So it's got wire inside, so you can see I can bend it, but it looks like thick jute twine. I'm going to bend this. We're going to cut a piece that is going to go from frame edge to frame edge of our sign. I'm just adding some hot glue there so that the twine doesn't fray or remove itself from the wire. Cut that piece, and then we're going to hot glue it to the sides of the frame. Next, I'm going to take these sticker words that say Merry Christmas. These also came with the scrapbook paper collection. Of course, you could use wood words or the metal words from Dollar Tree, whatever you'd like, or no words at all. I'm just going to use these stickers because it all coordinates together. So once we have that centered, we're now going to add our mittens to the clothesline there. I have these really teeny tiny clothespins, but first you can see I'm mix matching the pairs of mittens. I still have a left and a right, but I'm doing two different patterns of paper for each pair of mittens. So even though I have these little clothespins on, the clothespins are too tiny to attach the wood mitten to the wire. So I'm just gluing them on. We're kind of gluing them to each other, to the jute twine wrapped wire, to make it look like they're hanging on this clothesline. The last thing I'm going to do is just to make a really tiny messy bow to glue at the top of this project. I think this is so adorable. You could also make it say warm winter wishes or anything like that, but I thought the red and green colors, Merry Christmas, would be good. So just taking two different small ribbons here, I'm crisscrossing them. We'll tie them in the center and then glue them to the top of our project. For our fifth and final DIY for this video, I'm going to make this snowman hat. I've done this before with a coffee can and a large plate. This is a smaller aluminum can and one of the wood circles from Walmart. So a smaller version of the snowman hat decoration. I'm going to paint both the wood circle and the can with my Waverly chalk paint in the black color called Ink. And once both of those are dry, I am going to take my sander again, give a little bit of distressing both to my wood circle and to my can. Once I did the sanding, I took them to the garage and sprayed them each with my clear matte spray, mostly because I didn't want the paint to scratch off anymore from the can, other than what I was doing on purpose with my sander. Then next I'm going to wrap a piece of ribbon, gluing it to what will be kind of the brim of the hat here. It's closest to the open end of our can. We're just going to use burlap. You can use whatever color you'd like. I wanted to keep this neutral because it's pretty much going to be covered up anyway by some greenery and some berries. So just wrap whatever ribbon you choose all the way around. Then I'm going to use a combination of E6000 and hot glue to glue the open end of the can down onto the wood circle. Then once the base of your hat is made, you can just have fun with some greenery. You can see I have some snowy sticks there, some berries. You could use ribbon and make a bow. And I'm just going to glue these pieces on until I have it looking how I like. I love making these snowman hats. I think they're so adorable and they're really easy to make, especially when you can make them out of recycled materials. Thanks again so much for joining me today. As always, please let me know in the comments which of these projects was your favorite, and we'll see you next time. Take care.